Hi, welcome to my video on find the value or values of k, part 1. When we're solving linear equations, which is one of the units I done earlier, we found the values of k by plugging the root into the equation and then solving for k. So 2 is the root of the equation. That means 2 will make the equation true. So if the root is 2, so that means x equals 2. So we'll sub 2 in the equation and solve for k. So 2 squared is 4, 2 times 6 is 12, plus k equals 0. So notice I did the square first, and then I did the multiplication. Now we'll add. So 12 plus 16 equals 0. So k is negative 16. So if k is negative 16, that means 2 is the root. Let's just do a little tiny check, even though I didn't ask that. X squared plus 6x, k is negative 16. So let's put the k in, negative 16 in the equation. And this is a quadratic, so it has 2 roots. So x squared is x and x. The product is negative 16. The sum is negative 6. So the factors of 16 that give you 6 is 8 and 2. And the 8 has to be positive and the 2 is negative. So x plus 8 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. That means x is equal to negative 8. X is equal to 2. So 2 is the root. Therefore, k negative 16 is true. If a negative a half is the root of this equation, find the value of k. So again, we'll plug in. So that means x equals negative a half is the root, so we'll plug in a negative a half for x. So we plugged it in. And now we'll do PEMDAS. We'll do the square first. So negative a half times a negative a half is 1/4. So I'll just do one step at a time. Now we have the exponent done. We do the multiplication from left to right. So 2 times 1/4, 2 cancels, gives me 1/2. 3 times a half gives me a positive 3/2. Minus 8k equals 0. Because I have fractions, well, I can notice that when you add these, you get a common denominator is 2, so you get 4/2, which is 2. So if we simplify that, we will get a negative 8k equals negative 2. Divide by negative 8. And k equals 1/4. Now C, k plus 2 in brackets x squared plus 4x minus 4k equals 0 has a root of 1. So that means x equals 1. So we'll sub 1 in the equation for x. 1 goes in for x, and then we'll solve. So I have 1 put in the place of x. I have 1 put in the place of x, and I'll work it out. So I'll do my bracket first. Do my exponent first, PEMDAS. So that gives me a 1. And just do one step at a time. Now I have to multiply and multiply before I subtract. So 1 times k plus 2 is k plus 2. 4 times 1 is 4 minus 4k. And simplify each side first, so we get a negative 3k plus 6 equals 0. Negative 3k equals negative 6. Divide by negative 3's. 3's cancel, negative 3's cancel, k equals 2. So again, just working out the math based on finding the values of k, which will be some skills needed for later on in the course when the math gets a little bit heavier. D, -1 is the root of this equation, so that means x equals -1. So we'll sub in -1 in the place of x. We'll put in a -1 in the place of x. Remember, if it's a root, it makes the equation true. So we do the powers first, so -1 squared is 1, so that's a k squared minus k minus 6 equals 0. Notice up here we had a linear, so we only have one root. Notice we had k plus 16 is the linear, power of 1, we had one root. But notice we have a k squared. So k squared is a quadratic, so we have two roots. So because there's a 1 here, then we have a k and a k. K times k is k squared. What's the product is -6. The sum is, product is -6, the sum is -1. So the factors of 6 are 6 times 1 or 3 times 2. So which pair of factors of 6 give me a 1? So it has to be a 3 and a 2. But the product is negative and the sum is negative, so we must have a negative and a positive. And the larger number of those factors is negative, so multiply. -3 times 2, -6, add -1. So this is true, so k minus 3 equals 0, k plus 2 equals 0, so k is 3, or k is -2. So any one of these could be subbed back in here, and we would have the -1 as a root. E, -1/3 is the root of this equation, so find the value of k. So that means x is -1/3. So we'll put -1/3 in the place of x. Here we go. X is -1/3. -1/3 is a root, so we subbed it in. And we just take our time, so we square this first. -1/3 times -1/3 is 1/9, so it's 3k. I do my exponent first, one step at a time. So I did PEMDAS, remember, P-E-M-D-A-S. I have to do it inside the brackets, but I can't do that. I have to do my exponent first, so that's what we're doing now. We did this. We did the -1/3 squared. Now I'll do multiplication, division, left to right. So I'll multiply here, and subtract and add after. So let's do 3 times 1/9, 3 cancels into 9, 3, so I get 1/3 k. -1/3 times k squared is -1/3 k squared. -1/3 times -5 is a positive 5/3. Minus 1 equals 0. Now I have fractions in an equation, so I will multiply all parts of the equation by the common denominator called 3. So 3 times each of these, and I'll put 3, there they are, 3 times each of them, and 3 times. So 3 times 1/3 to cancel, will give me a k. 3 cancels, and I get a -k squared. 3 cancels, and I get a +5. 3 times -1 is -3, and 3 times 0 is 0. And let's see if we can simplify. Descending order, we got a k squared, a k. 5 and -3 is a +2. And we have a negative, so we don't want a negative, I don't. So I'm going to remove the negative to get -1 times -k squared, -1 times k, -1 times 2. And I have a quadratic again, quadratic, k squared. I have 2 answers, so that's factor easy. Remember, that's a 1. So the product is -2, and the sum is -1. When there's a 1, that's a product and that's a sum. If that's not 1, and it's not a common factor, then you have to multiply this number by the -2. But when there's a 1 there, it's easy. So we got a k and a k, gives you k squared. The factors of 2 are 2 and 1. So the product is negative, which means we got a plus and a minus. So which one is plus and which one is minus? So the 2 is negative and the 1 is positive, because when you add, you get a negative 1. So k minus 2 equals 0, or k plus 1 equals 0. So k equals 2, or k equals negative 1. So finding the values of k in quadratic equations is the same as finding the k in linear equations. You plug it in and you solve for k, which is not hard to do. Practice. Now we got some more to do. Practice means pause the video and work these out to see if you can get the right answer. So x is negative 1 as a root, so we'll plug negative 1 in the place of x. Negative 1 goes in the place of x, negative 1 is in the place of x. So we'll square first. So negative 1 times negative 1 is 1, so we get a k. And I'm just going to do the one step at a time. So we squared first, now I'm going to multiply. So k minus 2 minus 1. We multiply, now we're going to subtract or add, so it's negative 3. Remember, we're doing PEMDAS. We did the power first, then we did the multiplication, then we did the subtraction or addition. So k equals negative 3 becomes 3. Done. Number 2, negative 3 is the root of this equation, so that means x is negative 3, so we'll plug a negative 3 in the place of x. Done. We do a power first, which is 9. And I'm going to leave. Okay. So notice I did PEMDAS. I did my exponent first. Now I have to go back and see what I have. I have a multiplication. So I have to do the multiplication. Next. Done. And now I have 9, negative 3k, negative 6. So I add the like terms. So I get 9 minus 9k. Because these are like terms, I can subtract or add them, I get negative 9. So that gives me negative 9k minus 9, because the number moves to the left side, changing signs. Divide by negative 9 on each side, cancels, and k becomes 1. Number 3, root 2 is a root of this equation. Find the value of k. That means x equals root 2. So I'm going to sub root 2 in the place of x. Done. So root 2 is subbed in the place of x because it's a root. It makes the equation true. So now we got to do a power first. So 10. Root 2 times root 2 is a 2. And we do our power first. So I'm going to obey that rule. Now I have to multiply from left to right, so I get a 20. Root 2 times root 2 is 2. 6 times 2 is 12. I'm going to simplify the right side, so I get 32 plus 8k equals 0. And now I transpose. The variables are on the left, the numbers are on the right, so the 32 goes to the right, become negative. Divide by 8, k's cancel, and I get a negative 4. Perfect. Number 4, 1 is a root of this equation, so 1 makes the equation true, so x equals 1, sub 1 in. So we're subbing 1 in for x. Notice when I sub it in, when I put 1 in, I put a bracket around when I sub it in, just to keep everything okay. Now I have to obey PEMDAS. I got a power, so I'll do that. So that's a 1. Again, I'm doing PEMDAS in the correct order. I have to do my exponent first. You can't simplify your brackets, remember? And just make sure PEMDAS, keep it straight. The inside the brackets can't be simplified. The exponent got to be done next, which I did. Now I have to multiply. You can see the multiplication here. So 1 times k squared is a k squared. 1 times 3, negative 3k, negative 3k. So the multiplication division is done left to right, equal to 0. So now I have to add up the ones. I got a k squared minus 3k plus 2 equals 0. Remember, you have to write it in the ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form. Perfect. And this is factorable. Notice I got a k squared, so there's 2 factors because it's k squared. K and k. What's the factors? That's the product and that's the sum. The product is 2, so there got to be 2 and a 1. So if the product is plus 2 and the sum is negative 3, if the product is positive, then I'll have 2 off the middle signs because the sum got to be negative. So it's a negative 2, negative 1. So k minus 2 equals 0, or k minus 1 equals 0. So k equals 2, or k equals 1. Perfect. Works out. Again, there's 2 roots in this one because you ended up with a quadratic. 2 values of k, that is. And number 5, negative 3 over 2 is the root of this equation. So that means x is negative 3 over 2 as a root. So we sub negative 3 over 2 in the place of x. In the place of x, negative 3 over 2. I decided to have a few fractions hanging around because students normally don't like fractions, so you got to develop your skill. So when you, again, you got to do PEMDAS, you got to do your power first. So k squared, negative 3 over 2 times negative 3 over 2 is 9 over 4. And I got my power done, so I'm going to write everything down again, not only do one part of the PEMDAS first. Let's do my exponent. Now I have a multiplication and a multiplication and subtraction, so I got to multiply 9 over 4k squared. Negative times a negative is a positive. Multiplying fractions, the 3's cancel, so I get a 5 over 2k minus 1/4 equals 0. And the LCD for this equation, 4, 2, and 4, the LCD is 4. So I'll multiply all terms by 4. Multiplying by 4, and each side eliminates the fractions. Every denominator is going to cancel. Every denominator cancels, so 2 times 5k. Every denominator, remember, cancels. And 4 times 0 is 0. Now, which way do you want to solve this? Do you want to solve it by factoring? You can solve it by quadratic formula. It's your choice. What I'll do is practice. Let's practice both ways. Let's do the, because it's a quadratic, let's do the quadratic formula. So A, B, and C. And I'll do the quadratic formula fast. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so that's going to give me, b is 10, so that's going to give me negative 10 plus or minus. And I got a 10 squared minus 4 times 9 times negative 1. And a is 9, so it's 2 times 9. A is 9, so 2a is 2 times 9. And that gives me negative 10 plus or minus. Now I'm going to work all that out. That's 100 plus 4 9s are 36. So that's, let's see, 9, that's 100, 36, so it's 136 all over 18. And 136 is not going to work. So I got to break it down. So 136 is 2 into that. Let's break it down to 2 into that is 68. 2 into that is 34. So that gives me negative 10 plus or minus 2 root 34 over 18. So negative 10 over 18 plus or minus 2 root 36 over 18. So that gives me negative 5 over 9 plus or minus 34 over 9. So I had to do it by the quadratic formula because this value here of 136 is not a perfect square. So I cannot solve this by factoring. It looks like 9 and 1 will give you a 10, but not in this case because the product is negative and they'll never add up to 10. So these are the values of k that will work. So just be careful sometimes. So the quadratic formula always works when you're solving a quadratic. That brings us to the end, finding the values of k. Click on the button. Click on the like button if you like my video. Click on the subscribe also and the notification bell. More videos are coming. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content that's on my YouTube channel, Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Bye-bye.